Greatness is not this wonderful, esoteric, elusive, God-like feature that only the special among us will ever taste. You know, it's something that truly exists in all of us.
Greatness is not an esoteric quality that only exists in a few chosen select human beings. Greatness is something that we all have the potential to express. This week, we're going to talk about what it means to be great and how to make room in your life to express the greatness that's within. My brother Kamal, what's going on, man?
Hey, man, what's going on?
Hey, man, just starting off the week as strong as I can. You know, I'm going to tell you what inspired this. I'm going to tell you what inspired this episode is yesterday was the Super Bowl. And, you know, I like to pay attention during the different games to the tweets. I think I get as excited about what's happening on Twitter as I do about the game. And there was a moment during the game where Neil deGrasse Tyson posted something about Tom Brady that I think a lot of big football fans know, but I think it's a great reminder, given that Tampa Bay won the Super Bowl yesterday. It's Tom Brady's 7th Super Bowl finals ring. And I believe that he has more championships than any franchise does combined. Next would be the New England Patriots that he helped get 6 for. But by winning one with Tampa Bay, the brothers got more than any franchise. But here's this tweet that Neil deGrasse Tyson put up that inspired me. Brady's performance was great. Discussions about his greatness, that's cool. But here's what Dr. Tyson said. Tom Brady was the 199th pick in the 2000 NFL draft, which tells me that occasionally, if not often, people assessing your future potential based on past performance don't know bleep about anything. And that got me thinking, like, if you are not chosen by other people, if other people do not see you as great, how can you come into a recognition of your own greatness? And I said, this is what we got to talk about. Me and Kamal, we're going to riff on greatness. So last week, we did an episode called The Color of the Revolution, where we took a look at Black voices from the past and things they had to say about the message of self-liberation and personal freedom. We're going to build on that theme and continue to hear what voices of color have to say about greatness, but we're going to mix it up a little bit with a couple of modifications. One, we're going to go with videos this time. Last time, we went with a lot of different quotes from history. This time, we're going to play some video clips from different Black voices, and I'm going to give some historical voices from the past, but we're also going to take a look at what some contemporary voices have to say about greatness. And I basically am going to play a clip where different people talk about some different aspect of what greatness is, and then you and I will weigh in on it. So since we started off with a Neil deGrasse Tyson tweet, since this was the brother that inspired this episode, I'm going to lead off with a Neil deGrasse Tyson clip where he emphasizes greatness as the willingness to be true to yourself.
I've had several people come up to me and said, what can I do to be you? And the only aspect of me that's really doable is I can tell you what my academic pedigree is and what I did as a kid and what things interested me. But what I do day to day is not the fulfillment of some pre-existing job description. It's just things that I took interest in on my own that the general public happen to also appreciate or like or want access to. And so within my job description as director of the Hayden Planetarium and as an educator, as an astrophysicist, I kept accreting other things that I did that people responded to, positively responded to. So I can tell you about the academic pedigree. The rest, you have to create what it is that you do best, that layers onto the formal training that may be behind it. I think the greatest of people that have ever been in society, they were never versions of someone else. They were themselves. You don't think about Michael Jordan, the basketball player, and say, oh, he was just like this other player. No. You don't even say he was like this player plus that player divided by 2 plus this. No, he's Michael Jordan. I think the greatest of people in society carved niches that represented the unique expression of their combinations of talents. And if everyone had the luxury of expressing the unique combinations of talents in this world, our society would be transformed overnight. It's the great tragedy. People employed in ways that don't fully tap everything they do best in life. I'm privileged and I don't take a day for granted on the job about the fact that what I do, what people most warmly receive about what I do, are some of the things that I do best in life. I'm honored and flattered by that combination of facts as they apply to me. So your task is to find the combination of facts that apply to you. Then people will beat a path to your door.
Man, the greatest. I'll go for it, bro.
It was kind of weird, just jokingly, having my face right next to his so close. I was like, do I actually look like this dude? Like, I was looking at the whole clip. I was trying to pay attention, but anyway, I thought that was a fascinating point. I really did. I thought, and I think that a lot of times, depending on whatever like you want to do in life, like I love the fact that he brought up Michael Jordan, because you can look at this field of basketball and there are likely going to be, there are for sure going to be people in whatever your given field is that have came before you and have did really impressive things, have set the precedent, have made history. And a part of mastery is embracing that, learning from that, studying the game, studying what other people are doing and how they're bringing it to the table. And I think through that process of really studying, I think a lot of people from the outside might mistake that as that person's trying to copy, or that person's trying to be a replica, or that person really doesn't have their own game. But I think that's a necessary process. It's you have to step in and see who's doing what in the space and who's doing it well, and get a feel for that, copy, see what they're doing. But I think through that, you're going to be able to find where you can uniquely shine, where you have competitive advantages and you get to exploit those kinds of things. And I think, the two don't necessarily have to be in opposition. They're actually one and the same. It's just two different steps of the process that you need to first embrace, what has already been done and learn that and study that and model your game to embrace those things. But then the second step is what Dr. Tyson was saying is to step into your unique combination of skills, traits, and possibilities, and let that be the thing that really differentiates you. I think you can't build your legacy off of what other people are doing. You have to build it off of what you're bringing to the table uniquely. So, yeah, I think that's what he was saying in so many words.
Yeah, a follow-up question for you. What would you say is the difference between the people who use imitation and emulation as a way to learn and they go beyond that versus the people who just spend their lives trying to be somebody else? How do you go beyond that process of copying somebody else?
Yeah, I think if you are if you're copying somebody else in something that, if you're copying or trying to learn from somebody else who's doing something that you want to do, more than likely you're inspired to learn. The reason that you're copying this person is because you want to learn the skill set. You want to be able to do what this person does. I think, if you're copying somebody for some other reason, like somebody is asking you, hey, can you do X, Y, Z? And you don't really care about that thing. So you're just going to go out and copy what somebody else has done. Then sure, you're probably just going to take the easy way out and copy. But if you're going after something that inspires you, and I think that's the biggest differentiating fact, is to go after the things that really make you come alive. And through that, if you're copying, you're likely copying to give yourself a better understanding of the thing in its entirety, to then bring your own uniqueness to it. But I know for me, a part of it is confidence, right? It's making sure that you're confident enough in your own ability to go out and do the thing and do it at a high level. And in those early days, depending on what kind of person you are, you might not have the confidence to back you going out and doing your own thing. So it's less risky to just imitate.
Yeah, I like the way you put that. It makes me think of a distinction between the fundamentals and the stylistic elements. And any discipline that you learn is going to involve both of those things. And so when you copy other people, there are certain universal fundamentals that you're going to pick up. So if you want to learn how to be a public speaker and you go watch a bunch of TED Talks or you go watch a bunch of MLK speeches and you copy it, there are certain fundamentals of public speaking that will be embodied in all of those people that you watch, like how to set up your topic, how to tell a story, how to give an illustration, how to close out a talk, how to pause when the audience is laughing or clapping. But then the style is where you put a little bit of your personality into it. And that's something that you can't get from anywhere else. That's where you bring your own sense of life to what you do. So I think what you're getting at is copy other people so that you can learn the fundamentals, but always realize that you have a unique element of self that you can bring to that. But you got to master the fundamentals first. Does that make sense?
Definitely.
Here's one thing I liked about the Neil deGrasse Tyson clip. I think it's become cliche to tell people, hey, be different, embrace your uniqueness, be yourself. But then when it comes to actual decisions like investing money, building your career, we tend to do the complete opposite and say, well, what's everybody else doing? Well, what's everybody else talking about? And we tend to find so much safety and security in the crowd. And we look for what our Uber driver is doing. We look for what our family and friends are doing. And we're kind of scared to be ourselves when it comes to making decisions to deviate from the safety and security of the crowd. And what I like about what Dr. Tyson says here is that it's a reminder of where the real value comes from in life. The real value comes from not only daring to be different, but having the confidence of knowing that there is always room in the marketplace for your taste, no matter how weird and eccentric those tastes might seem to be, And I think it can be scary at first, but it reminds me of this verse in the book of Proverbs in the Bible, where it says that a man's gift will make room for him. It doesn't say there will be room in the world for your gift, but it says that your gift will make room for you. And I think what Tyson's talking about here is you've got to trust that your unique combination of talents and interests have the ability to create opportunities that didn't exist when you came into the world. To me, the real definition of failure is limiting your sense of possibility to things that already existed when you were born. And the real definition of success is expanding the possibilities of your world by saying, I'm not going to get my identity from society. I'm going to bring my identity to society, and I'm going to open up doors that were shut when I came into the world. The world will look different because of me. All right, let's roll.
To add there. That was fire.
All good, man. All good. Let's roll to the next one, man. I got a little blast from the past here. This is from a man who knows a lot about being a champion, and he's the one who delivered the famous phrase, "I'm the greatest of all time." Here is a moment from none other than the greatest, Muhammad Ali.
Who knocks out everybody and no one can whoop him. That's when that little Cassius Clay from Louisville, Kentucky came up and stopped Sonny Liston, the man who annihilated Floyd Patterson twice. He was going to kill me. But he hit harder than George. His reach was longer than George. He was a better boxer than George. And I'm better now than I was when you saw that 22-year-old undeveloped kid running from Sonny Liston. I'm experienced now, professional. Jaw's been broke, been knocked down a couple times. Bad. Been chopping trees. I done something new for this fight. I done wrestled with an alligator. That's right. I have wrestled with an alligator. I done tussled with a whale. I done handcuffed lightning, throw thunder in jail. That's bad. Only last week, I murdered a rock, injured a stone, hospitalized a brick. I'm so mean, I make medicine sick.
Man, dude.
Bad. Fast. Last night, I cut the light off my bedroom, hit the switch, was in the bed before the room was dark.
Incredible.
Fast.
Incredible.
And you, George Foreman, all of you chumps are gonna bow when I whoop him. All of you. I know you got him. I know you got him picked, but the man's in trouble. I'm gonna show you how great I am.
I'm gonna show you how great I am. For this one, to me, this aspect of greatness is the willingness to predict your own future. There are certain people who illustrate the importance of saying, I'm not just going to call it like it is, but I'm going to call it like I want it to be. And then I'm going to go out there and back it up. I heard Muhammad Ali in an interview one time, and the interviewer was asking him, why do you talk so much trash? Why do you make so many predictions? And he says, because when I make predictions, I put pressure on myself. Do you know that people get mad at me when my predictions turn out to be false? If I promise to knock out a man in the 5th round and it takes me 6 rounds to knock him out, or he gives up and quits in the 4th round, if my prediction is in any way wrong, people are going to say, man, I lost money because of you. I'm so mad at you. So my predictions keep me accountable, and they make me show up and do what I gotta do. And he says sometimes he scares himself with his predictions because he knows there's a possibility to be wrong. And I think it can be so easy to play it safe and to say, well, I'm not going to try to speak anything into being because I might be wrong. So I'm going to wait and see if I achieve big results. And then I'm going to celebrate and say, hey, guys, I achieved a big result. But greatness is having that willingness to say, I'm going to predict my future, and then I'm going to hold myself to going out there and inventing the future that I want to have. But what if you're wrong? But what if you predict a future where you're going to do this or that and you fall short? I'm going to recognize that I'm great enough to be able to handle the risk and failure that comes with the ambitions that I set for myself. And I think Muhammad Ali embodied that and was truly the greatest of all time when it came to that willingness to stick his neck out there and say, no, I don't just want to be a contender. I'm not just going to show up and give a good fight. I'm not going to put in a respectable performance. When the bell rings, I will be recognized as the champion. Anything less than winning is not success for me. To me, that's greatness when you're willing to predict your future like that.
What stood out the most to me is it's very clear that the man drinks his own Kool-Aid. And I think that's an important aspect of predicting your success, of believing that you are that person, that you are that dude, that you are that woman. There's a certain delusionalness that I think is healthy. There's nothing wrong with knowing that you're that guy, that your competition or that the people who are saying, the naysayers, that they don't have anything on you, that you have a certain confidence. It's just a resting confidence that you're a bad mamma jamma. So I think a lot of people look at that and say, oh, he was arrogant. Oh, this guy is just a joke. It's funny to us because we can look at it objectively and say, okay, I get where your head's at and you're going to say whatever you want to say. But I think a lot of the greats do the same thing. During this past summer, we were watching Michael Jordan's Last Dance documentary, and he came out and told the story about how one of the defenders on one of his playoff series had said something to him, and he, in his head, took it and ran with it and made it this big ordeal, and that he used that to fuel him. But then he came back and honestly said, that guy actually never said anything to me. I just pretended he said something to me and made a big drama about it so I could pump myself up. And I think the same is true here when you need to get to that next level, when you need to tap in to everything that you got, and you need to push yourself to be the next best version, it is okay to have a certain delusionalness to what you're about to do, to what the mountain that you're about to climb, to the task that is at hand. It is okay to really step in and allow yourself not to have this super logical conclusion about how XYZ is going to happen. If you know the what and that you know the energy that you're going to give, you don't have to worry about the how. You can speak to what the end result is going to be.
Word up, man. You know, there was a line in the minimalist documentary Less Is Now, where Josh says, "I was living the American dream, but it wasn't my dream." And I love that line because he was talking about how even though he had a great career, he had a lot of money and people saw him as successful, that wasn't really what he wanted for himself. He was just kind of living out somebody else's idea of success. And so there is a healthy and needed movement to remind people that they need to make sure that they're not chasing after these big ambitions for the purpose of impressing other people. And I think that's good. What Muhammad Ali captures for me is a balancing truth to that. And the balancing truth is, don't hide behind modest ambitions. If your ambitions are unimpressive to other people, that's cool as long as it makes you happy. But also remember, sometimes thinking small can be a way of hiding from responsibility. It can be a way of hiding from the discomfort of challenging ourselves. One of the most valuable things I had somebody say to me one time is they said, "TK, it's time for you to stop using 'I don't care, I'm good with whatever' as an excuse to stop pushing yourself to get to a new level." Because sometimes you can become so good with being like, "Oh, I don't need all of that. I don't need all of that." And that can just be a way of saying, because I don't need all of that, I don't have to work harder than I'm working right now. And so being true to yourself and being someone who dares to define greatness for themselves means that you not only avoid the world's concept of big success, but that you also avoid your resistance's concept of little success. We're going to stick with the old school, man. And there was a brother that we talked about last week. There was an awesome quote from him, and we're going to go back to him. This is James Baldwin, and this captures for me the notion that greatness is the willingness to define yourself. Let's listen to Brother Baldwin.
Well, I know this. Anyone who's ever tried to live knows this. So what you say about somebody else, you know, anybody else, reveals you. What I think of you as being is dictated by my own necessities, my own psychology, my own fears and desires. I'm not describing you when I talk about you. I'm describing me. Now here in this country we've got something called a nigger. It doesn't in such terms, I beg you to remark, exist in any other country in the world. We have invented the nigger. I didn't invent him. White people invented him. I've always known, I had to know by the time I was 17 years old, what you were describing was not me, and what you were afraid of was not me. It had to be something else. You had invented it, so it had to be something you were afraid of, and you invested me with it. Now if that's so, no matter what you've done to me, I can say to you this, and I mean it. I know you can't do any more, and I've got nothing to lose. And I know, and I've always known, you know, and really always, that's part of the agony. I've always known that I'm not a nigger. But if I am not the nigger, and if it's true that your invention reveals you, then who is the nigger? I'm not the victim here. I know one thing from another. I know I'm going to be born and I'm going to be, you know, I was born, I'm going to suffer, and I'm going to die. And the only way you get through life is to know the worst things about it. I know that a person is more important than anything else. Anything else. I learned this because I've had to learn it. But you still think, I gather, that the Negro is necessary. Well, he's unnecessary to me, so he must be necessary to you. I'll give you your problem back. You're the nigger, baby, he isn't me.
You know, man, that clip was not within the context of somebody asking him for advice on how to succeed, but how he handled the question that was before him illustrates one of the most important principles of success. James Baldwin was addressing the N-word and what it means to be called that. And he pointed out that the invention of a thing reveals more about the inventor than anything else. And he says, this is not a word that we created. This is a word that somebody else created. And so this word says more about the party that created it than it does about me. And so I give this word back to you. I've always known who I am, and I've always known what words do and don't apply to me. And this is not my word. This is your word. So what does it say about you? I give it back to you. My mom used to tell me back in the day, and I'm sure other people have seen this, she says when somebody's pointing a finger at you, their thumb is pointing back at them, right? That when a person says something about you, it says more about who they are and where they are than anything else. And I think one of the most important parts of greatness is not just the ability to hustle. It's not just the ability to work hard. It's not just the ability to clearly define your goals, but it is also the determination to never let another human being have the final say on who you are. And no matter who you are, there will be people that will come up with labels to describe you. They will say you are stupid. They will say you are boring. They will say you are ridiculous. You're too humorous and too silly, or you're too serious and too deep. They will say you talk too short. They will say you talk too long. They will say you're too tall, you're too short. And all of that means is that you are too much for them. But you are exactly the person that God created you to be. And your greatness is determined by recognizing that, embracing that, and choosing to say, I will give myself the definition of who I am in this world. And I'm not going to be a slave to another person's labels. And Baldwin, for me, illustrates that. The way he dealt so elegantly with the N-word is an example for all of us on how we should deal with other people's labels that they try to impose on us.
Yeah, I think this is an important distinction between, buying into a group philosophy and then buying into your own philosophy. I think there's just such a key aspect to any kind of greatness, to any kind of success, that you are individually principled, that when others are trying to sway you or move you, that you know where you stand, you know who you are, and that you know how you're going to move forward. And I think a lot of times, whether you just come through the traditional school system, maybe in the family you grow up in, you don't really get the space, or you're not really encouraged to figure out who you are. You're just told that you're this, or you're just told that you're this, or your daddy was like this, or this is what your parents do as a job, so this is what you're going to do. Like this, you're going to stay in this, that, and the third. And I think you're leaving out such an important piece to the puzzle if you never take the time to really define who you are. Because definitely, as you were saying, people are going to accost you with labels. They're going to call you this. They're going to call you that. They're going to suggest that you're this person or that person. That doesn't even have to be negative all the time. It doesn't have to be insulting that they're trying to get under your skin, but they're trying to put you in a box because they don't know how to deal with who you are or what you bring to the table. They just want something easier that they can comprehend, so they're going to just slap a label on you. But that doesn't define you. But it doesn't define you if you know who you are. If you're for anything, then you'll be anything for anybody. But if you know who you are, then you know what it means. And so I think people who don't take that time to really know who they are will forever be subject to anybody's labels, and they'll be anything to everybody.
Yeah, I love that, man. I think rising above labels goes beyond just saying, I know who I am and I'm going to defy the label you put on me. But it also involves saying, I have the power to reinvent myself. So even if you are right in the label you assign to me, that label is only a description of my current reality, not a description of my potentiality. So I can evolve in a direction that makes me bigger than the person you accurately describe me as now. So one thing that happens a lot, and we can even see it in ourselves, where we use labels to talk about the expectations we have of people. So maybe an actor decides that they want to go into music, and we say, what's she doing trying to come out with an album, right? Or a musician decides to make a movie. What's he doing trying to act and be in a movie? We tend to limit people to what we've seen them do in the past. Oh, Kamal, you're the guy who does this. Oh, TK, you're the guy who does that. And that's all we know of them. And that may be all we have been up until that point. But you are never limited to what you've been in the past. And you always have that ability to say, yeah, I can learn a new skill. I can acquire new experiences. And so even if those labels are true, I can make them temporary. And I think that's another powerful way to look at it.
I wanted to hop in on this inward piece because this is actually something that I was thinking about just earlier this week. I feel like this is one of I like the way that he phrased it because he's essentially like, I'm giving this problem back to you. But what I also think about is really, really cool about Black people is that we have just a unique ability to flip things on their head. Like, I think for any group of people who've been oppressed for an extensive period of time, you learn how to make lemonade out of lemons. You learn how to take the circumstances and then make the best out of the situation. And I think nothing is more true within this with the N word, because amongst Black people who call each other the N word, it 9 times out of 10 is a word of endearment. It's a word that like, you're my dude, you're my friend, you're like, we go back, like, and I think it's just so funny because, this label that you're trying to attack me with, this thing that, you came at me with hate, like, I'm going to redefine what it even means. And you can take your definition and here, take that negative energy back, but I'm bringing something new to it. And I think this is true for just any kind of labels, is that when somebody tries to put a lid on you or tries to confine you by, labeling this is what you are, that you have the opportunity to not only give it back to them, but to completely flip it on their head and say, like, this is what you thought, but this is what actually is the case. And this is how I actually do this thing.
Yeah, man, that power to reclaim something and redefine it and say, what you have chosen to use for evil, I'm going to take it, I'm going to redeem it, I'm going to transform it, and I'm going to use it for good. I mean, that's even how we got the tradition of soul food, right? I mean, on the plantation, there were only certain parts that we could have, certain limited portions of things that we could have. And the tradition of soul food came out of this expression of creativity. It came from the ability of our ancestors to take the little that they had, to take the leftovers that they were given and be able to make something special with it. And I think that's a power that we always have individually and culturally, man, to take something that's used against you as a weapon and turn it into a trophy, a symbol of honor. And the N word is a powerful display of that. I love that, man. I love it. All right, we're gonna go to. We just took a couple of people from history. Let's take a couple of people from the new school. This next brother is Inky Johnson, who is a popular motivational speaker, works the circuit with Eric Thomas, and this is one of him talking about controlling the uncontrollable. So far, we've discovered greatness as the courage to be yourself. We've talked about greatness as the ability to define who you are and reject other people's labels. Greatness as the ability to predict your own future. This is greatness as the ability to focus on what you can control. Brother Inky Johnson.
Meaning, you ever been in the airport and when you don't get your flight on time, you get delayed, and you could be standing by some people and they get mad and they almost make you mad. You're like, man, I wasn't even trying to get mad, but they making me mad. Never even realizing life may be protecting you from something. Like, it's like the 9/11 incident. I was doing some research on it. I'll never forget. I'm doing research on it. Terrible incident. A lot of people lost their lives. Senseless act. And it talked about in this article the other side of it. And in the other side, what they spoke about was that morning, a gentleman had to take his daughter to kindergarten, and he really wanted to get to some meetings, but because he had to take his daughter to kindergarten, he couldn't make it to the meetings on time, and so he just called out the whole day. And his wife asked him that morning, he was getting dressed, his wife said to him, can you please take our daughter to kindergarten? He said, I really need to be at these meetings. She said, can you please take our daughter to kindergarten? I really need to be at work. He said, I really need to get to these meetings. She asked him one more time, can you please? I beg you, can you please? He said, all right, I'll do it. He called in, didn't go to work that day, and because he took his daughter to kindergarten, it spared his life. One gentleman on the New Jersey Turnpike, headed to the same buildings, New Jersey Turnpike, accident happens, breaks down, can't get there on time, and because it happened, a situation that he couldn't control, it spared his life. One gentleman got a new pair of shoes, walking to work, got a blister on his foot. He had to go back home, change his shoes, and because he had to go back home to change it, it saved his life. One gentleman walking down the street, they send him to get some donuts. A guy comes, spills some coffee on his shirt. He had to go and change his shirt. Because he had to go and change his shirt, it spared his life. The other side. Meaning things happening out of their control, and because it happened out of their control, it spared their life. Meaning at a certain point, when do we control the controllables? Attitude. When do we control the controllable? Focus. When do we control the controllables? Commitment, dedication, spirit, the energy and the passion that I bring into an environment. When do we control the controllable? I couldn't control. I got a paralyzed right arm and hand. I couldn't control my career ended. I couldn't even plan for it. But when it happened, I could step back and say, okay, life, I can no longer play the game of football, but let me extract that dedication and commitment from the game. I could step back and say, my arm and my hand is paralyzed. My dedication isn't. My purpose isn't. My arm and my hand is paralyzed. My work ethic, it isn't. My purpose isn't. My arm and my hand is paralyzed. My dedication isn't. My purpose isn't. Meaning my reason for why I first started, it never got paralyzed. And as talented, as brilliant, as strong as people are, it's the saddest thing in the world when I see people just stop giving everything they got to something that they once loved. Because I think we all know the raw truth of it is people don't burn out because of what they do. People burn out because life makes them forget why they do it. Meaning life hits them and hits them with something till they just like, man, if I got to go through that, like I'm not bringing it today, man. And every day is not a good day. Everything is not all peaches and cream. But that's why the culture is so important. That's why when the culture is set, we know what we bring to it, and we know how we get down because we know what we're working for, and the purpose of it is greater than any individual.
We can't control all the things that happen to us, but we can always control how we react and respond to it. When I think about the words of Jesus who said, you've heard it said before, an eye for an eye or a tooth for a tooth. But I say to you, when someone strikes you, turn the other cheek. On the surface, that can look like a message that says, I want you to take whatever comes to you and just let the world run over you. But one day, I actually looked in the mirror and physically turned the other cheek. And what I found is that in order to turn the other cheek, you have to look in the opposite direction. And so one way of looking at that message is when you face opposition and difficulty and things that make you feel like the world is against me, instead of just retaliating, instead of just resenting what you're going through, instead of just reacting, try to change the way you are looking at things. Try to adopt the 180 perspective on what it is you're going through, because you can't control if somebody just catches you off guard and sucker punches you, but you can control what you do about it. And you might have more options for what you can do about it and how you can see it than you might think. And what I love about Brother Inky Johnson's clip is he gave some examples of how people came upon obstacles that would ordinarily have been very frustrating, but then later on they got confirmation that that obstacle was the very thing that saved their lives. Now, the trick of life is that we don't always get that confirmation. The trick of life is that this very week, we're all going to have some things like that happen to us where we get held up in some kind of way or inconvenienced in some kind of way. And we're not going to get the easy, obvious confirmation of something bad that happened that we were saved from. And so it takes a sense of imagination to say everything in life is working for me as long as I am willing to work on my own behalf by using what I'm going through as a tool to lift myself up and make something good happen, using my circumstances as the ingredients. That is a tremendous amount of power, and we should never treat that power as if it's the consolation prize for losers that can't find real success. No, that power is the foundation for everything. Everything that you will ever be in life is going to be determined by the power that you have to choose the way you react and respond to what goes on around you.
Yeah, I really like the piece about allowing the circumstances and allowing yourself to look at the circumstances differently. I think a lot of times I've found in my life that it's easier to be tunnel vision toward one task, to give it all, to give it your all, to be so narrowly focused that you're blocking out anything else, and the only thing that matters to you is getting to the end goal. I think for some stuff it is helpful. You know, it allows you to block out, you know, tons of things. We live in a world of distraction, right? And so I think you definitely need to have that ability in your tool belt. You need to be able to lock in, laser in, and to focus. But when stories like this comes out and you hear about situations where, you know, taking this guy taking his daughter to kindergarten saved his life, you often get reminded that this thing is bigger than you. It's bigger than this meeting. It's bigger than this live stream. It's bigger than us. It's life. Life is grander, and that there's a bigger thing going on here. And I think often we get so caught up in the weeds and get so caught up in the, you know, day to day and just check and do and BBB and etc. And I think to the extent that you are able to have some poise and you know, just pause and understand like that something is bigger is happening, right? And how can I get in alignment with it? It doesn't often, you know, being in alignment with it might not be the same thing as your logical XYZ plan that you're going to do step 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Like that might not be the thing that gets you in alignment. The thing that gets you in alignment might not make sense to you. You know, it might frustrate you, might just boggle your mind. Like, why does this have to happen? But I think in times like that, where all of us find ourselves in, we all are in times where we're like, why is this happening? Why does this have to be like that? You have the opportunity to look at it differently, to pause, to stop, and to remind yourself that this thing is bigger than you. And oftentimes in my life, I've tried to find that balance because, again, I am that go, BBB, we got to kill it. But you have to also know how to go with the flow. You have to know when the tides are turning and you know, when it's easy and when it's appropriate to go with the current. You know, there's some situations in life where, yes, you will be battling against the current. You have to fight and persevere against you know, the elements and everything that's coming towards you. But there's other times where it does make sense to go with the flow, where it absolutely is the right move to allow the current to kind of move you. And so knowing the difference, I think, is key. It's going to save you so much stress. And in this circumstance, it could even save your life.
Word to the wise. Hey, man, we're going to close it out with a young brother that I had a chance to meet in Nashville, Tennessee. I was at a Ramsey Influencer event, and he's a pastor named Pastor Brian Bullock. He was one of the guys who won and the speaking contest. And this clip comes from him. And I think it's a great closing out on this topic of greatness. We're going to riff on it after the clip, but he's talking about the power of legacy and that aspect of greatness. And I think what you just said about how it's about something that's bigger than you, I think makes for a perfect segue here. So let's go to Pastor Brian.
I was going to talk about something else. I don't care nothing about no legacy. I'm only 21. I'm living my best life. Living my best life. You know what I'm saying? I'm just 23. I'm 25. I'm 30, Pastor. That legacy thing is for them old folk. All right, let me just let you know something I forgot to tell you at the beginning of the sermon. What I forgot to tell you is you are leaving a legacy whether you want to or not. The question is, are you going to be intentional about the legacy you leave? You are leaving one right now. You are leaving a legacy whether you want to or not. Will you be intentional about the legacy you leave? It's like I travel a lot. And so one day I was traveling to a city, and they gave me a car, rented a car. And when they gave me the car had a stench in it. Had a stench, and I've had cars, that kind of had a smell that this wasn't the best, but I didn't think nothing of it. And so I get in the car, got a little stench in it, and so I'm driving it, and I got the windows down, and I bought some air fresheners, and I drive this thing around with this stench. And then when I brought the car back, gave them the keys, and when I was on my way, I saw my email, and it said they charged me $450 more than what I was supposed to pay for the car. I'm hot. I went back and I said, hey, I was like, why y'all charge me $450? They said, because you brought the car back with a stench. I said, no, I got the car with a stench. They said, no, you brought it back smelling like cigarette smoke. I said, I never smoked a day in my life. I said, how in the world I'm going to bring it back? They said, hey, well, I guess you just going to have to pay for what somebody else did. And I said, you know what? Isn't that a picture of some of our lives? All of us in this room have experienced a moment where we have inherited something that wasn't us. And many of us are paying a price for something our father did or something our grandfather did. And because they didn't deal with the addiction, now here I am, I'm 40, and I'm dealing with an addiction that I inherited from my father. And many of us are paying the price for stuff that somebody else gave us. And God is saying today is the day where you stop the cycle. Do not pass down a stinky life to anybody else. They may have given you the car all stunk up, but this is the day you about to clean that bad boy and you about to make that thing smell fresh. Stop giving dirty, stinky lives to people behind us. It is not cool. It is not cute to pass on a messy life. So you're about to hand your children a life full of drama and chaos because you don't want to live for legacy. And God is saying, no, the life you're about to pass down is about to be blessed. The life you're about to pass down is going to be anointed. The life you're about to pass down, your kids going to say, throw me that life. That's the life I'm looking for. Hand that over right here.
I want to keep playing. I want to keep playing this.
Anybody can do this Google search. I challenge you to do it. I did a Google search on all the organizations and businesses in our country that are last names. And I did a study, and I realized that there's a bunch of companies that are last names. McDonald's is a last name. Abercrombie and Fitch, 2 last names. Armani is a last name. Baskin Robbins, 2 last names. Chrysler is a last name. Fisher Price, 2 last names. Gucci, Hennessy, Harley Davidson, Hilton, Honda, Kohl's, Kraft Foods, Lowe's Movie Theater, Marriott, Maybach, Nordstrom's, Pillsbury, Porsche, Procter & Gamble, Rolls-Royce, Charles Rolls, Henry Royce, Turner Broadcast System, Ted Turner, Versace, Wells Fargo, Henry Wells, William Fargo, Walgreens, Wrigley's, and Welch's Grape Juice are all last names. Now, here we are thinking we're wearing a product. You are not wearing a product, you're wearing a family name. And here you are investing in everybody's family but yours. And here you are in a situation where you are going to Wells Fargo so that you can get money from one family, so you can go to Rolls Royce and get them to another family, so you can take that car and go back to the Joneses and show people just how broke we really are. And God is saying, nope, I didn't put you in the earth just to invest in everybody else's name. I gave you a name. And I don't care how you got your name. I don't care if you like your name or not. I don't care if you think that's the best name or not. God says the name that I gave you, if you work that name, I will make sure you leave a legacy. I will add my blessing to it. I will add my grace. I will add my anointing. And God is saying, I need you to leave a legacy now. Stop living for everybody else's name but the one God gave you. And God is saying, no, you are not just doing normal stuff. I put a name on you. However you got that name, that's the name you're about to use. That's the name that God's going to bless. And God is saying every move you make, you are either perpetuating a curse on that name or you are canceling a curse on that name. Every move you make, you are either extending something in your family or ending something in your family. Which means when you get married, you didn't just get married, you broke a curse. When you graduated from college, you didn't just graduate, you broke a curse. When you paid off debt, you didn't just pay off debt, you broke a curse of poverty over your family. When you got yourself in shape, you didn't just get yourself in shape, you loosed a blessing of health over your family. When you had kids, you didn't just have kids, you broke a curse. And I wish I was talking to at least 50 people in the room that says, Pastor, I know who I am. I'm a curse breaker. I came. The reason why God gave me that last name is because I'm supposed to take that last name and break every generational curse that's on that name. Can I get at least 50 people in this room that say, Pastor, you talking to me? God, thank you for where I am. Thank you for my family. The name that I have is going to be better as a result of me being on the earth than before I got here.
Take us to church.
I couldn't talk like that if they paid me to.
No,
man, that brother brought the heat. Yeah,
sure did.
You know, I had to speak after him. I didn't go right after. Right. He got up there and talked, and he brought that kind of energy. It was that kind of energy, and then he sang too. So, and he can sing. He like, when I say he sang, it wasn't like a Boyz II Men, like, I'm just here to sing. No, like he was belting. My man was belting. And I was like, my gosh. Why did they say this guy for last? But fortunately, I didn't go right after him. There was a little buffer. But yeah, he brought the heat, man. That guy, he's a pastor in North Carolina. I got to make it out to his church sometimes. But, you know, I'll just say what I love about that clip, what I absolutely love about it is this idea that when we make ourselves better, we're not just investing in ourselves, we are investing in all of those people whose purpose and potential is going to be unlocked by what we're capable of achieving. We're not just establishing success for this generation, but we're laying down a template of what is possible for the next generation. You think about the things that we believe is possible today. It's only because somebody came before us and they worked their butts off to overcome barriers and to do great things. And now we can wake up and find ourselves in a world that says, oh, of course that can be done. That's common sense. That's easy to do. Of course we can do that. That's what we have to do for the next generation. We have to push the boundaries in our own time so that the next generation can come along and say, oh yeah, it's common sense that you can start a business. It's common sense that you can think for yourself. It's common sense that you can write a book, that you can make a difference, that you can lift yourself out of poverty. It's common sense. But that common sense is only common when we can take a creative idea when it's in a very fragile state that's easy to mock, easy to ridicule, easy to not believe in, and exercise the faith and persistence to make it grow so that it becomes common. You know, because every generation's common sense is the previous generation's barrier to break. And I think Pastor Brian captured that idea so beautifully, that we're not just here to keep ourselves motivated and make a few extra dollars so that we can get by. In fact, as selfless as that sounds, it might actually be the opposite. It's easy to say, yo, I just want to make enough money for me. All right. But what if you desired more so that you can help more? What if you wanted to do more than just make enough money to pay your rent, but you wanted to make enough money to be able to teach other people how to more effectively do it, to be able to be a blessing to somebody else that can't afford to do things that they want to do, to be able to invest in someone else's dreams. So we've got to desire more for ourselves so that we can be a bigger blessing to others.
Absolutely. I think that was the same direction I was going to go in. The part of the clip that stood out the most to me was when he listed all the different companies and how all of them had these last names. They were all founded. I mean, I didn't even know Gucci or Versace was the last name. That's fascinating. That was such an extensive list. Easily 50 to 100 of the major corporations, like, of the world, not just United States, were founded by people, and they use their last names to start the company. I think that's so powerful. What it reminded me of was this book, The Richest Man in Babylon. And one of the main principles that I took away from that book was you need to pay yourself first before you pay everybody else. Take a percentage of your earnings and pay yourself first. And I think the lesson there is that there's always going to be other people who want your resources. They may want your energy. They may want your time. They may want your creativity. There's always a demand for that. There's always going to be opportunities for you to give it to your job, for you to give it to your family, for you to give it to, your lovers, et cetera, et cetera. But I think this principle of paying yourself first extends beyond just money. I think you have to pay yourself when it comes to, your ideas, when it comes to the things that you think are going to change your life for the better, the things that you think are going to make you come more alive. If you pay yourself first, you are going to have an impact that is greater than paying those individual people at the moment. If you continue to pay yourself, that savings will accumulate and it will compound and it will grow. And again, this is not just in terms of money, but this is in terms of creative potential, that if you're investing into yourself, you have so much more to give. There's so much more developed. There's just so much more potential that you've realized. You've exceeded heights that you didn't even know you could get to. And through that action, through that dedication, through that commitment to whatever you're trying to fulfill and do, you're going to put yourself in a position where you are able to leave a legacy, where you are able to invest in other people, where you are able to break these generational curses. But it does start with you. It starts with paying yourself first, and it starts with selfishly paying yourself first. There's nothing wrong with investing in the gifts and abilities that you were put on this planet with. You're unique. You have those. Nobody else has those. So for you not to invest in them is a waste. And you can continue your whole life investing into all these other people and all these other avenues. But at the end of the day, they're going to look back and they're going to wonder. I think the older you get, the harder this becomes, because people look back and say, "Why are you so depleted? Shouldn't you have accumulated? Like, isn't there more to give?" And if you miss the opportunity to invest in yourself and to do that over time, I think you are going to be in a position where you're looking back and you're like, "Dang, I am depleted. I wish I would have done more. I wish I would have given more to myself." So another word to the wise, but it might not seem like it at the moment, but the effects of paying yourself first, the compound interest that come with that, that's the thing that's going to be able to put you in a position to break those generational curses and to change the world, your world.
Right on, man. Depletion is not the result of giving too much. It's the result of giving too little to the things that matter most to you. My brother, I've enjoyed this conversation about the soul of greatness with you. We've heard valuable lessons from Will Smith, Neil deGrasse Tyson, Muhammad Ali, James Baldwin, Inky Johnson, and finally Pastor Brian Bullock. Just a quick summary on greatness. If I had to give a one-liner from each one of those guys, greatness is the ability to recognize that genius is normalcy. Greatness is the willingness to be yourself and bet on yourself. Greatness is the courage to predict your own future and make it happen. Greatness is the willingness to transcend other people's labels and define yourself for yourself. Greatness is the determination to focus on the things that you can control. And lastly, greatness is the commitment to putting respect on your own name and creating possibility for future generations. What does greatness mean to you? Tell us in the comments. Don't forget to click the like button, subscribe. Let us know if there's anything you'd like to hear us talk about next time, or if you got any questions for us, and stay tuned because the revolution will continue to be live streamed. Peace out, y'all.